We are getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
On the 82nd day since Nancy Guthrie disappeared, everything seemed to have fallen into complete silence. No calls, no clear trace. No one knew where she was. But then just when hope seemed almost gone, an unexpected detail appeared and shook the entire case. A strange Bitcoin wallet containing only one short message. "We are ready to talk." Was this a real signal, a distraction, or was someone trying to control the entire game from the shadows? Before we go any further, this needs to be made clear. This video is based only on publicly available information and educational analysis using timelines and data comparison. It is not meant to accuse any individual. We are not saying who is right or wrong, and we do not encourage extreme speculation. If you know important information, contact local authorities directly. Do not investigate on your own. Do not attack or harass anyone, because in cases like this, the truth always needs evidence, not emotion. According to information that has been made public and widely shared, Nancy Guthrie, an elderly woman living in Tucson, Arizona, was said to have disappeared without leaving behind any clear explanation. There was no dramatic final phone call, no certain witness, and no clear sign like in an investigation movie. That silence is exactly what made the case feel even heavier. A woman with a steady, daily routine suddenly vanished from the place most familiar to her. As time passed, the question was no longer only where she was, but what really happened during the time no one could see. To see this case more clearly, sometimes we have to put emotions aside and keep only the simplest thing, the timeline. No guessing, no rushing to conclusions, just the key moments that show which direction the story is moving. I break this story into three main points. Day 0, Nancy disappeared, leaving behind an empty space that even today no one has been able to fill. No goodbye, no clear sign, only silence beginning from the very place that should have been the safest. Around day 50 to day 70, based on the moments often mentioned in public reports, information appeared about letters believed to be ransom demands sent to local media. Then came Day 82, when a Bitcoin wallet showed activity, along with one short message enough to make everyone stop and look again. "We are ready to talk." What matters is that the exact dates may be different depending on the source. So using day instead of exact calendar dates helps keep the focus on the logic of events, because sometimes the distance between those moments is exactly where the truth begins to appear. The content in this video is for informational and reference purposes only. Although it has been cross-referenced with reputable sources, some details may have changed or may not be entirely accurate. If there really were letters that looked like ransom demands, then the normal logic of a ransom case would be very clear. First, communication must stay active so the other side always feels that time is passing and pressure is growing. Second, pressure is built step by step, forcing the family or the people involved to respond quickly. And third, almost the most important part, there must be some way to prove the victim is still safe, a sign strong enough to make people believe this is a real exchange. But in Nancy's case, the most striking thing was not pressure but the gap. There was a signal, there were letters, there was a Bitcoin wallet, there was a short message, and then after that a silence so long it felt cold. The behavior looked like a ransom case, but it never reached the end of the road of a real ransom case. And sometimes, that small contradiction is exactly the place worth looking at the closest. Many people see silence and immediately think it means a dead end, as if the investigation has stopped and there is nothing left to find. But in sensitive cases, silence can sometimes be part of the strategy itself. Some information cannot be made public too early, because even one small detail getting out can change the entire direction of verification. It can cause people involved to change their behavior, hide traces, or worse, erase the last pieces of evidence still left behind. So just because the public does not see progress does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes that quiet space is exactly where the investigation is under the most pressure. When people hear about cases involving ransom demands, many think it is very simple, just pay the money and everything will end. But reality is often far more complicated. Behind every contact is a tense, psychological game, where even a few minutes of silence can carry its own meaning. Many security experts have pointed out that in sensitive situations like this, investigators cannot make everything public right away. Some information must be kept private, not to hide the truth, but to protect the direction of verification, avoid changing the other side's behavior, or prevent evidence from disappearing. That is why the public not seeing progress does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes that silence is exactly where the investigation is at its most intense. And the painful part is that people on the outside can only wait while the truth is still sitting somewhere no one has reached yet. And this is exactly where the story starts turning in a direction that many people cannot stop thinking about. If the real goal was money, then why was there no clear proof to create pressure? In normal situations, people would want the other side to believe the victim was still safe, that time was running out, and that a decision had to be made quickly. But here, after the letters and the short messages, all that remained was empty space. No confirmation, no proof. No real pressure in the way a true ransom case usually works. And that absence is what brings another theory into the picture. What if the ransom demand was only a cover, an excuse to buy time to push attention toward a story that felt easier to believe, or to make everyone assume that money was the only motive while behind it? There may have been something completely different. Sometimes the scariest thing is not the demand, but the real reason that was never spoken out loud. One line of analysis often mentioned in criminal psychology is this: in many serious cases, the person involved is not always a complete stranger. Sometimes it is someone who once appeared completely normal in everyday life, a familiar face, so familiar that no one felt the need to be careful. Someone familiar here does not always mean a family member. It could be a neighbor, a delivery worker, a repairman, someone who once worked in the home, or simply a person who had walked through that door many times without creating any suspicion. Familiarity itself can sometimes be the strongest disguise. People are often afraid of strangers, but they easily open the door for someone they believe is harmless. This is only a behavioral analysis framework, not a conclusion about anyone. But it reminds us of one painful truth: sometimes the distance between safety and danger is only one trusted face. At this point, there is one question many people cannot stop thinking about. If something really happened, was this the action of one person alone, or were multiple people involved? One person usually leaves behind different traces than a group, and sometimes the way everything happened can say more than words ever could. But again, this is only an analytical perspective, not a conclusion about anyone. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you lean toward one or many? Leave just one word in the comments so we can look at this case from more than one angle. And then the story opens into an even more sensitive direction, one that makes many people both curious and cautious to talk about: what if Nancy was not the real target? What if she was not the final destination, but only the path used to create pressure on someone else? Someone with more influence, someone more visible in public, and therefore someone easier to place at the center of attention. In complicated cases, sometimes the action is not aimed directly at the victim, but at emotions, reputation, or control over the person standing behind the story. In this case, some people have mentioned Savannah Guthrie as a public figure with strong influence. And from that, theories appeared that if someone wanted to send a message, create psychological pressure, or force a reaction to happen, then targeting a family member could become a cold but effective way to do it. The frightening part is not whether that theory is right or wrong, but how it makes people look at the entire story under a different light. That sometimes, the person who suffers the most is not the one who was truly meant to be the target from the beginning. However, this must be made very clear. This is only a hypothetical line of analysis mentioned in public discussions, not a conclusion, and certainly not an accusation against any individual. Without evidence, every theory should remain only a question. Because between truth and rumor, the line is sometimes thinner than we think. If this were a normal ransom, case secrecy would almost always be the most important factor. People would want to control information limit, who knows, and keep everything in the dark to create an advantage. But here, when the letters appeared through local television stations, and the story was quickly pulled into the public spotlight, everything became different. That loud public exposure is exactly the detail that made many people stop and think. Because when a story is pushed too hard into the light, sometimes the goal is not only money but attention. The attention of the family, the community, the media, or even one specific person. And when attention becomes the goal, behavior often starts to look strange, creating traces but never finishing the path, sending signals but never completing the story. As if what mattered most was not how it ended, but making sure everyone looked at it. While the public continues debating motives, ransom, and theories around the long silence, real investigations usually return to the simplest and most reliable thing: physical evidence. Emotions can lead people in the wrong direction, but evidence does not know how to lie. One detail that was mentioned was that a single strand of hair was reportedly found at the scene, so small it was almost invisible but enough to open an entirely different path for the case. That sample was said to be sent for deeper testing, with even mentions of the FBI lab in Quantico. DNA is not magic that can immediately name someone overnight. It is slow, silent, and demands time. But it can create the most important thing of all, a real direction. Either a direct match with existing data, or an indirect path through genetic genealogy, a longer road but sometimes the only road that leads to the truth. And this is exactly where every theory begins to touch the line between speculation and truth. If that DNA sample truly leads to a match connected to suspicions about someone familiar, someone who had contact or a motive tied to something personal, then the story moves into a completely different stage. At that point, it is no longer vague questions on the internet, but data that can actually be tested. But there is also another possibility, quieter and even more frightening. What if the DNA leads to a name no one ever expected, someone completely outside every theory that came before? Then the entire picture would have to be drawn again from the beginning. Everything once believed to make sense could collapse because of one test result. That is why in many cases the thing that changes everything is not a statement, but one tiny trace strong enough to pull the truth out of the dark. The truth sometimes does not live inside shocking headlines, but hides in the silence between the points on a timeline. We have now gone through 82 days of silence, conflicting ransom letters, and a Bitcoin wallet carrying a strange message. But are these really pieces of one complete picture? Or are they only chess pieces carefully placed to lead public attention into a maze with no exit? Behind the bright lights of public attention and the theories surrounding famous names, there is still one woman who has not come home. DNA may give us a name, but it cannot explain the motive hidden deep inside the darkness of the human mind. The answer may still be somewhere between the cold data inside the Quantico lab and the familiar faces we never thought to question. The door of this case is still slightly open, waiting for one small touch to reveal everything, or perhaps to close forever in the silence of time. If you are ready to go deeper with me to break through the final layers of fog with a clearer theory map and a faster 12-minute investigation, leave a comment. Part 2. We will not stop until the numbers begin to speak.